Welcome back. Our teams have decided to get one more game in this evening, so we're going to try to get one more commentating stream out. We're going to play a little bit of catch up here to figure out what's going on with the game state, and it may be that we jumped in at the right time for drafting or the start of the game, trying to figure out what the state is. Yep. So it looks like we have a Beast Boy. Beast Boy, Black Lightning, and Harley Quinn. Then, who's the other one? We have a Starfire. Starfire, Black Lightning. And
how's it going, Bender?
It's going good, man. That was a solid game going forward last time. We saw that it ended up being pretty close between first and second.
Well, what was the game?
Oh, man. Yeesh.
Was it just...
it was Aquaman, Green Arrow. Oh, man. Start changing all the names already. I remember the Weather Wizard and Harley Quinn was the winner of last game.
Oh, fun. That team's really good.
But right now we're trying to get ready for this next game where they've drafted. They got the first lineup going, trying to get the teams updated here. Looks like we have Bizarro as the third member of the Starfire Black Lightning team.
Black Adam, I think.
Black Adam, pardon. Black Lightning is up with Harley Quinn, excuse me. Then it looks like we have a Martian Manhunter.
And Aquaman and Silk Spectre. Like a pretty hero-heavy lineup.
They could be dedicating just from the get-go, hoping that the lineup changes and starts being hero-heavy, yeah. Then we have a Manta, Green Arrow,
and the Comedian.
And Comedian.
We have a few type-heavy strategies here, and then Beast Boy, Harley, Black Lightning, which is pretty generic. Gonna draft whatever good.
We're gonna go ahead and start the time in the round. As I get these names reset, if you just keep up with the game state for me.
Looks like a Manhunter bought a kick and put it on top with Aquaman. See, the Green Arrow just passed. I don't really know what the Green Arrow did there.
They have a 2-power start.
I guess he might have, because he's just shuffling, and I don't know. I didn't see him buy anything. Maybe he bought a kick or something.
So it looks like it's going to be a kick-heavy first round.
Yeah. And it doesn't look too strong. Got a couple locations that. Well, the Fortress of Solitude and Superboy might be pretty good if everyone just keeps buying kicks, but as of right now, people are kind of struggling to get anything going.
Right, that Fortress might not be a bad first card to buy, as well as the Superboy. Just be able to boost up that kick power.
Okay, so Harley's turn, I think.
Having a fast-paced start, people taking the turns and just moving right on to the next. Let's see, with how many kicks are going out early game, Superboy wouldn't be bad turning that 2-power into a 3-power every time there's a superpower in your discard pile. But then also late game, a lot of the good cards are superpowers, so that could be a late game contender.
Yeah. Looks like the Harley team has 4 here, and he's going for the power of the red, right?
All right, Power of the Red. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. Real good at cycling through your deck.
Also helps trigger Harley.
Oh, definitely. Solid pickup for that player then.
Looks like the Manhunter player played X-Ray Vision, and I don't know exactly what he chose to pick, but it looks like he has at least 5 power, 6 power.
Oh man, this lineup's changing real quick.
Yeah.
Got a Bunker. It looks like that could be a heavy contender early game.
Bunker's a very good card. One of the best 4-drops in the entire cube.
I have to agree with that. Reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and put 1 card of each type into your hand and discard the rest. Yeah. So, I mean, automatically you get draw 1 off of it, if not more.
Yeah, potential draw 3 for a 4 cost is very strong.
And as suspected, it didn't hang around long.
Yeah. It's a very quick pickup. There's the something Mason. I forgot what the Hollis Mason. He's a board clear. He destroys all non-equipments in the lineup and then replaces them. So that's
a really good way for someone to attempt to hit theme, blow everything up that you don't want or you think is a threat, and try to get the cards you really want.
I mean, that could be pretty good for the Bizarro player, because if he destroyed a bunch of cards in the lineup, then he gains a bunch of weaknesses, which can turn into free draws.
So my question on that one being, just understand the rules, that would be 1 trigger of a destroy effect, but possibly multiple cards. Would that Bizarro player get multiple weaknesses?
Yeah, I believe so. Bizarro says for each card you destroy, you gain a weakness. So if you destroy multiple cards, you get multiple weaknesses.
Just bringing up the character card here, kind of showing what we're talking about. When you destroy a card, so it does specify each card destroyed, so that does give the multiple weaknesses there. So that's a very, very good card for the Bizarro player, because they can take immediate effect of that and start getting draw off that, as well as getting a fresh lineup.
Yeah. Lineup's also very good for the Bizarro player, because there's no current superpowers in the lineup, so he's able to trigger Starfire for free to get a free draw every turn. That's also something to note.
So it looks like there's potential here for him to start to run away just with advantage. So we have the Harley Quinn, Beast Boy, Black Lightning making their move. And it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah, it looks like
5 power?
Yeah, they have 5 power. Looks like they're picking up the... I don't even... What is that card? Is it Blackbriar something, I think? It's the card from Confrontations for sure. I think it's like Blackbriar Rose or something. Yeah, go. Thorn. Blackbriar Thorn. 1 more down.
1 more down?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, here we go. Blackbriar Thorn. 3 coster, plus 2 power, 1 VP. Your player have played a superpower this turn. You may destroy a card in your hand or discard pile. So with the destroy card being a field wipe, I think this is the first personal destroy card that's shown up with the condition on making that destroy happen. But having personal destroy is a good way to take the lead just by streamlining your deck.
For sure, especially since like everyone spent the early turns of the game buying kicks. The Harley player probably has a couple in their deck to help trigger the Blackbriar Thorn's effect to destroy a card, which is very good for them. And then the Martian Manhunter player picked up Hollis Mason, and that's good for him because it'll help him trigger Martian Manhunter later in the game. And it'll help him board clear any non-equipments in the lineup to help find more heroes or villains to help trigger his Manhunter.
So he has his shovel ready, and he's about to start digging.
Looks like some pretty quick turns of just kicks.
Looks pretty straightforward, but the villain that did flip out to replace Hollis's position is Killer Frost. And this just all of a sudden became a location lockdown. 4 coster, plus 1 power. Not that great on the power side of it, but if anyone starts to go after those locations, this card is a deterrent for that sticking around on the field and just getting out of hand.
And also, if like it's just a good buy in general, because if no one buys the locations, you could just always draw a card, which is plus 1 draw card is just very solid.
So even though it's weak on the power side up front, definitely has use and is a solid buy for a 4.
Definitely have to agree with that. Looks like the Green Arrow player is cheating, and he got water control, I think.
Water control? I think that's one of the newer cards.
Yes, it's a card from Confrontations. It's a like pretty good defense. You can put 2 cards with combined cost 3 or less from your discard pile into your hand, so you can get like 2 cheap cards where you can just you basically just trade it for like 2 punches, or if you have like a 3 cost card, you can add that back instead.
So that's a pretty good utility card, kind of depending on what situation you're facing. If you just need volume, you can make that volume, or if you're looking for one particular 3 or less, you can go search that out.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like he has some pretty good cheap cards. He has the Expert Marksman and a Cheetah. So if like those are ever in his discard pile, whenever he chooses to defend with this, he can get those back.
That would work very well.
Looks like Green Arrow chose to use his ability to reduce the cost of villains in the lineup and got Killer Frost for 2 power.
Now he's making use of those punches hanging around since there weren't any destroy cards early game that he get his hands on. That's the benefit of running that Green Arrow, not having to rely on thinning your deck out, being able to use those punches to your advantage.
There's also only 1 power, my mistake, because Comedian also reduced the cost of it by 1 because Killer Frost has an attack. So the Comedian reduces the cost of attack cards by 1, and then if you use Green Arrow's effect, it reduces it by 2 more. So you're really reducing the cost of any attack of villains by 3. So you basically got the Killer Frost for 1 power.
Impressive maneuvering on the board, taking full advantage of manipulating that cost.
Players are having pretty quick turns. Like they don't really have much going at the moment. Looks like it is Harley's turn now. Play a kick and a Solstice to draw a card.
Also, just getting up to speed on what the new cards are in the lineup. We have a Jaina, which is a +2 power for 3 cost. If you control a superpower, draw a card. So with the early kick start, it wouldn't be a bad card for any player's deck, really.
Yeah, it's a very solid buy. It's kind of like a Solstice that the Harley player just played. It's pretty much the same thing, except it costs 1 more and gives you an extra power. It's Canary Cry. The Canary Cry is a very good defense. It's just a draw card, and then if you play it, you can, instead of drawing, you can choose to put any villain from your discard pile on top of your deck. And then if you defend with it, it basically has the same effect, except you can only add a villain with cost 7 or less from your discard pile to your hand.
All right, and it looks like the player picked up the 2 cards we were just talking about, being the Beast Boy player, Harley Quinn player. And now we have 2 more cards flipping into the lineup.
Mala is a very good card. It's a 4-cost card from Teen Titans Go set. It gives you 2 power and then +1 power for each additional villain you control.
There's a handful of cards like this, and each one of them very powerful 4 costs.
Yeah, they're very strong 4-cost cards. They're can just give you a lot of power, especially since it's cards you control. So they work with ongoing. So if, for instance, if we had an ongoing supervillain, or if any Lady Vix or Zookeepers decided to show up in this game, you could just leave those in play and get additional power for those.
Right. It doesn't have to be one that you play, just one you control.
Yes.
So fantastic, very situationally beneficial. The other card that flipped out during that turn was a Black Lantern Batman.
This card can be very devastating for players that are very equipment focused, because if they have an equipment in their discard pile, they end up getting 2 weaknesses instead of just the 1. So this is basically like a laughing gas with like that can be more like brutal.
Just with that kicker on the end of like, oh, you're going for equipment, so I'm just going to kick while you're down.
Yeah. Or even if you just like so happen to like pick up just a good equipment, you could just get punished for that, which is pretty brutal sometimes.
I've seen that card single-handedly shut down people going for equipments. There'd be good equipments in the lineup, but they're just so scared of that card because they don't have defenses to stop it.
Or any destruction to get rid of them.
Exactly. So let's see. It looks like the Green Arrow players slowing this down a little bit, taking his time collecting. Then we have
Phantom Stranger, I believe.
I think that is correct.
This card is very good too. If you destroys a 0-cost card in your hand, or destroy a card in your hand or discard pile, my mistake. At the end of the game, it's 1 fewer VP for each card with cost 0 in your deck. It can be a potential 10 VP bomb, which can like just win the game outright.
So with cards that have a destroy, or for players that have a destroy card in their deck, and any way to cycle to accelerate to make sure they can hit it, as long as they can manage the weaknesses and work through those starters, this can potentially be worth 2 supervillains worth of VP.
Yeah, it can be like potentially game swinging.
Oh, definitely. So we have some kind of attack resolving here. Weaknesses being exchanged.
Not sure what attack it was.
See, Green Arrow's drawing up his hand.
Oh, did the Black Adam player maybe destroy a kick or something? Because he could have gained a weakness with Bizarro.
That's probably what it was. Bizarro going into effect is what happened. There it is. It looks like it was destroyed right there.
So he's got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like 10 power, I think. That's enough to buy Control Freak if he had, or he can buy the Phantom Stranger, which it isn't a bad buy by any means.
Well, looks like he's going for the Phantom Stranger and trying to decide if he can make that last VP to get a hold of the Black Lantern. Looks like he can't, so he'll spin it on the kick.
Yeah, another kick or the Fortress of Solitude wouldn't have been a bad buy either, because he's playing Black Adam after all. So he's going to have superpowers throughout the game, and just getting that extra draw would be pretty strong, but can't go wrong with either way.
I think right now he's keeping those locations out there as a safety filter, just in that he won't flip into any good cards as long as he leaves them out there.
Yeah, that's also potentially true too. Also, he's choosing to leave the Black Lantern Batman out, and then now a Scarecrow is slipped as well. So, thing to consider is the Bizarro player doesn't really care if anybody has those cards, because if they play him against him, he just gets basically free draw fuel. Every 2 weaknesses he has in this discard pile, he can return 2 to draw a card. So, like, if someone else bought this Scarecrow and this Black Lantern Batman and played them against the Bizarro player, they're basically just giving him free draws.
So, unlike the other players that have to be a little bit more concerned about gaining weaknesses and manage the weakness gain, he just doesn't care and he can prioritize elsewhere.
Yeah. It looks like the Harley player decided to buy the Black Lantern Batman just to try to flood out the other 2 players, I believe. It's a strong card regardless. +3 power, I think, or is it +2? I think it's +2.
+2 power, yes.
Let's see. The Dark Portal?
That's probably it. Yeah. Let's try Dark Portal. I was trying Shadow, but I don't think that was working.
Yeah, yep. There you go.
Dark Portal.
So this card is also very good because it lets you. It's like a card that lets you look at the top card of your deck, and it's not a weakness, you may destroy it. So it helps you filter your starters out of your deck. And only being a 1 cost, it's pretty strong, like for the value.
I prefer to see it early game to get a handle on it, but you're right. It's a destroy card, so it's welcome at any point in the game.
I mean, the Black Adam player could always use it because he can just blow it up with Black Adam and get a victory point and draw a card, and then also check the top card before he draws with Black Adam to see if it's a starter. And if he destroys it, then he gains a weakness with Bizarro to draw another card.
So I mean, it's probably not going to hang out there too long either. More than likely picked up by the Black Adam player. And the card that was just taken from the field was the Cape of the Cowl, a +2 power card, a defense card. One of the better defense cards in that when you use it, you're able to draw 2 cards.
Yeah. Very strong defense card from the base set. Always just been very solid. Drawing 2 cards off your defense is just very strong.
Was it Speed Force, the other defense card draws 2?
Yeah, Speed Force. Or no, Super Speed.
Super Speed, excuse me. But both those cards, when they show up in the game, it's real hard to pass those up. There's got to be something real good in the lineup to pass them up.
Yeah, or if you just like have the power to get the super villain. Sometimes that's, I think that's Mystic Control.
Mystic Control. Yep.
That card lets you look at the top card of each foe's deck. You don't have to reveal it, so only you get to look at it, and then you may discard any number of them. This is typically really good with teamwork characters, but I don't see any on the table, so this isn't that great of a card. It's basically a +4 or 4 cost +2 card, except the comedian player can get it for 3, so it's basically like a slightly better kick for the comedian player.
And for the number of attack cards showing up, some slight advantage there. If they happen to hit that attack card, they can delay it for 1 more shuffle.
Yeah. You can always check the top card of each opponent's deck, and then if they have a power card, force them to discard it so they don't draw it themselves.
And the card that flipped out along with that is Possession. It is a 6-coster, 2 VP. It makes 3 power, and each foe reveals their hand and then resolves each attack in their hand against themselves. Yeah. So once again, with the attacks that are showing up, that could be very beneficial to whoever picks that up.
Especially for, like, since the comedian's in the game, he's going to be buying as many attacks as he can. So that card can just be completely brutal towards the comedian Green Arrow player.
And it looks like the Black Adam's going to pick it up if he can. He's got 7 showing.
And he also looks like he's trying to get that Dark Portal like we talked about earlier.
So we're going to suspect that he's going to use that for fuel and a one-time use for the effect.
Yep. Ooh, Telepathy. That's a very strong 3-cost card from Confrontations. It lets you get 2 power, so it's basically the same as a kick, except you may discard a card to draw a card. It's really good with Harley Quinn in case he can't trigger Beast Boy or he doesn't want to trigger his Black Lightning. He can use this card to trigger and draw a card. So he would discard, draw, and then draw again for Harley. So it's a very good card with Harley Quinn.
It's a really refreshing card design too. A lot of the cards say draw a card, then discard a card.
Yeah.
This one's switching around, making you have that choice up front and just take what you get.
Like the Harley Quinn player is playing a kick and a Solstice, so he's getting 3 power and drawing a card. And
then just keeping up to speed as well as what was happening there with the other flip out. We have Raven, another 3-cost card, +1 power and draw a card.
This is just one of like the better 3-cost cards in the game. Like it's just, like it's not like amazing. It's not gonna like win you the game, but it's just like such a like solid value for the card. Like getting 1 power and drawing a card is just very solid.
I mean, +1 and get your next card, which I mean it could be a vulnerability, but you're moving on to your next card. So when you start having more powerful cards in there, it's just icing on top.
Looks like the Harley player is having quite a turn. He's drawing through a lot of his deck. He played a kick, Solstice to draw a card, and then I think a Jaina to draw a card, which is basically the 1 higher cost, 1 higher power giving version of Solstice. So he basically played Solstice twice to draw 2. For 3, 5 power, played Blackbriar Thorn to get 2 more power, and I think he played his Black Lantern Batman to make everyone gain weaknesses as well.
So a very solid turn, showing 9 power at the current moment.
And that's Gotham City Ducks.
So just keeping fresh with the game state of the lineup, we have Gotham City Ducks, location 4-coster, 1 VP. And once during each of your turns, you may put a card with a cost 6 or less from the lineup on the bottom of the main deck if you do replace it. So just a really good way of controlling the pacing of the game. If you see a card that you don't like, get it out of the way so no one else can buy it.
Yeah, helps you dig for cards that are good for you if you're more of a type-specific strategy, like the Manhunter and the Green Arrow player.
Oh, definitely.
And then it also helps you like hate out other types in the game too. Like if the Starfire player had it and he didn't want the superpower in the lineup, or he couldn't afford to buy it himself, he could Gotham City docks it to the bottom to draw for Starfire to either help dig for the supervillain or just to try to find a better card for himself.
Oh, definitely. So very technical play, helping know when to flip cards out, help advance the lineup, or hinder your opponent.
Yeah, for sure. I think is it Manhunter's turn or is it Comedian's?
I think it's Manhunter because that was
like
Harley resolving.
I think I see a Scarecrow in play. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's slightly off the view of the camera, so I can kind of make out that it's Scarecrow, but I can't quite see what else he's playing at the moment. Looks like he's also played a punch and buying Jervis Tech.
Which I pulled up here is a +1 power card. Look at the top card of your deck. Destroy it or discard it. So unfortunately, you don't get to keep it on top, but it definitely helps you get rid of a lot of your starters when you hit them.
He must have just played his Hollis Mason as well. Sorry to cut you off there, but I think he destroyed. He must have played that to destroy 3 cards in the lineup to get +3, and he replaced them. So it looks like we have a Zookeeper, I can't quite remember the name of that equipment. Or has that one been sitting there? The one that's like +1 for each ongoing.
I think that's cybernetic.
Like, yeah, cybernetic enhancement.
This one's been hanging around a while, but there have been a lot of ongoings that have started to make their presence known on the field. So it wouldn't be a surprise if someone just picks that up with the extra 3 power when they produce it.
Looks like Green Arrow got the Zookeeper for free by discarding a punch to reduce its cost to 0. Zookeeper is nothing really that special. It's just an ongoing defense. If it's in play, you can discard it to avoid an attack. So you can just leave it in play until you need it. And then whenever you need to avoid an attack, you can just discard it and then...
I mean, whenever you can afford to take the time to get him out there on the field, it's just really nice security to have a standing defense that you don't have to worry about drawing.
Yeah, for sure. And then it looks like he cheated like the New Titans tower. No, it's not that. It's a Jump City, I think. Yeah, Jump City from Teen Titans Go. If you played a cost 1 or 2 card during your turn, you get to draw a card. So it's like Titans Tower from base set where you play it cost 2 or 3, except it's cheaper cost, and you have to play cheaper cost cards.
At this point, it looks like it may be next turn that Green Arrow is setting up for to pick up that cybernetic. So unless another player hate drafts it, I think that Green Arrow is going to pick it up.
this also would have been a very good Swamp Thing game because there have been a multitude of locations flipped this game.
You might be able to just get away with playing Swamp Thing by himself this game for the number of locations that are making themselves present.
Yeah, we also have Cadmus Labs and Gotham City. Cadmus Labs lets you return a hero or villain with cost 3 or less you control and put it into your hand. So if you have like a Raven, for instance, you could play Raven, draw a card, and then Cadmus Labs it, bounce it back to your hand, play it again, get another +1 power, and draw it again. Just as an example.
So just another technical move presenting itself to the players.
Yeah, for sure. It's a card that can just extend your combos, help you reach numbers or dig farther in your deck for your power cards. And then Gotham City is just one of those reveal the top card of your deck locations that is for equipments. And then if you reveal an equipment, you draw it. If not, you may discard it. So it helps you like filter the top card of your deck, help you get through your starters and weaknesses you may have. Looks like Black Adam player has 4 power. Johnny Quick and Vicky Vale. So we have Johnny Quick and Vicky Vale in the lineup. They're both 2-cost cards, and they both do the same thing. They just draw you a card. They're just pretty generically good cards. It's never really bad to buy them because they just like get you 1 card farther into your deck, and help you extend combos if you have anything to manipulate the top card of your deck. So like that.
Definitely cards to watch out for if a T-Jet makes itself present. Both of those 2-costers that don't get in your way.
Yeah, for sure. And then they're both really good for Manhunter as well, if they manage to make it to him, which I'd be a little surprised if they did, because they're both hero and villain, which help trigger Martian Manhunter to get his +3 boost for either type.
And it looks like throughout the game he has tried to pace himself to cover both heroes and villains, so it wouldn't be a surprise to see Martian Manhunter start to trigger.
He should be able to start triggering either one or both of his effects soon. Especially since he seems a little more hero focused, I'd expect to see that one trigger a little more consistently since he also has the help of Silk Spectre. Yeah.
The big surprise is that we're 5 minutes out from the halfway mark and we still have the starter villain out in play and no one's contended him.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's just been pretty content with farming. Or they've just been having rough starts where they've been like at 9 power and not been able to quite reach the super villain yet, because I remember the Harley player had 9, I believe, a couple turns ago.
That's right. 9's made itself present a few times on the board. There have been several 3-power cards that made themselves available, but the game's been fairly divided to where they haven't all gone to the same player, making a landslide scenario.
It looks like the Harley player is also flooding people with weaknesses, it seems like. Looks like the Martian Manhunter and the Green Arrow are having problems getting rid of all of their weaknesses that this Black Lantern Batman is giving them. Bizarro, on the other hand, is like just happy to take all these weaknesses. It's just going to net him free draws on his turn.
As long as he can stay in control of his draw and get rid of those weaknesses before he has to shuffle, he's sitting pretty.
Green Arrow flipping in the lineup is pretty good for the Harley or Martian Manhunter player, since both seem to have a decent amount of heroes in their deck. At the end of the game, it's worth 5 VPs if you have 4 other heroes in your deck. One of those cards that can just like be a super equivalent of a super villain during the end of the game.
It's definitely one of the sleeper cards that if you can pick up early game and people forget about it, it's a good way to sneak back in for the VP win.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with like teamwork being in the game. If they forget you have the Green Arrow and they just like over teamwork you and give you too many free VPs, you can just like steal wins with cards like Green Arrow. And then we also have Two-Face here, which is a great 2-cost, especially early game whenever you know you're going to hit. Whenever you know you're going to hit like starters, you can call even all day and just draw a starter for free. And then if you know like mid to late game about like if you have more odd or even cards, you can like have a good idea of having a good chance of drawing a free card with Two-Face and getting a free power.
So just keeping track of the game state, Two-Face, even though he's low cost and only makes 1 power, a very good way to disrupt your opponents and stay in control of the game. Looks like Martian is taking his turn, trying to figure out what his power total is.
Can't quite see what he's doing, but he seems to have hit enough to hit by Control Freak. So that is the first super villain buy of the game.
We didn't go over it at start of game, but the first villain was Control Freak. which are very, very good +3 power, but and draw a card.
Yeah, it's basically a +3 draw card because in competitive rules we do not play with sidekick sides of the Teen Titans Go characters. So it basically just like equates to the no sidekick clause like not even mattering and it just being +3 draw card. Hawkman, yeah.
And it looks like the villain / hero to replace in the supervillain stack is Hawkman, making his first appearance attack of each player discards cards until they have discarded at least 5 power worth of cards. If your hand's empty this way, gain 1 VP. So he's punishing, but at the same time, he doesn't necessarily make you miss tempo unless you fail to discard your whole hand.
It looks like Green Arrow failed to discard his whole hand. He had to discard everything and only got a VP for it.
Oof.
So that's pretty rough. He basically has to skip his next turn since he doesn't have the teamwork ability at all on his team.
Right, his abilities rely on having at least a punch in his hand to make something happen, which unfortunately with that two-face in the lineup, that could have been the case for a free card.
And it looks like the Harley player had a Canary Cry to defend, and it looks like the Manhunter player discarded a bunch of cards. I don't know if he discarded his whole hand, he kind of just put them all down at one time.
And it looks like the table's having a little bit of a discussion figuring out how all this resolves to make sure everyone's in the right game state.
Yep.
But it should have gone to Green Arrow, which unfortunately discarded their hand, so they're going to have to pass, and it'll be the Black Adam player's turn.
Yeah, it looks like he Dark Portaled for a punch and decided to destroy it. And then he's also using Black Adam's effect to destroy the Dark Portal to gain another VP and gain another weakness for destroying another card during his turn. So he gained 2 weaknesses already this turn, so that's 1 free draw this turn. And it looks like he has 3 sitting there. So that's... looks like he's returning 4 to draw 2.
And just a friendly reminder of the character Black Adam. The first time you play a superpower during each of your turns, you may destroy it, and if you do, draw a card and gain 1 VP. So even though he had to discard a lot of cards for the turn, he's managing to still have effect on his turn.
It looks like he drew into a battering off of his Bizarro and or Black Adam draw. That's going to let him draw another card. So since his deck is out, he has to shuffle and draw after that. See.
So I presume at this point he either has 1 or no weaknesses in his deck since he only played 1 card.
And then here's a Phantom Stranger, so he's going to destroy a card in hand and gain another weakness for Bizarro's effect. So he's halfway to another draw.
And it seems like this hero did nothing but help him as it's setting him up for this destroy and thinning out his deck.
Yeah, this Phantom Stranger is going to be very good for him late in the game. It's going to be worth quite a bit of victory points.
Definitely, since we're now at the 30-minute mark, he still has 30 minutes to thin out all the starters and other 0 costs that may present themselves in his deck to where he'll start at 10 and get reduced down from 10 for every 0 cost in his deck at end of game. Yeah. So it's looking pretty good for him on that VP value.
Yeah, and then there's no superpowers in the lineup too, so he can also trigger his Starfire this turn. If he hasn't already, I'm not quite sure if he has or not. Looks like he has 4 or 5 power so far. From 1 from Battering, 2 from Kick, 1 from Punch, and 1 from Ocean Master, I believe.
Ocean Master was one of those quick pickups. Let's take a look at it real quick.
It looks like he had 8 or 9 after, but some of his cards were off the screen. It looks like he just picked up a few kicks to help keep his Black Adam fuel going.
Version of Ocean Master.
It was that one.
All right. So one of the quick plays early game was the Ocean Master, +1 power, 2 coster, 1 VP. If your player played another villain this turn, you may destroy a card in your hand or discard pile. I think he just played Ocean Master as his only villain that turn.
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't see him destroy anything else with Ocean Master, but it is also another card that can help him filter out all those starters to get more weaknesses to send back with Bizarro to draw more cards.
So it looks like that may have been just an early game investment to hopefully have a late game payoff.
Yeah, for sure. Looks like Harley's having a pretty decent turn, drawing a bunch of cards like Harley Quinn does. The typical flash deck, as we like to call it. Played like nothing but cards that draw him cards this turn.
So the goal is to get a few strong cards in there and just be able to draw to him every turn.
Yeah. So he's got 2, 3, 4 power from what we can see on camera. From the 1 from the Raven, 1 from Solstice, and 2 from Jaina. And then he's playing a Kick as well, so that's
6 power showing.
Yeah, 6, and then I think he played his Black Black Lantern Batman as well. Kind of hit over there off camera, I think.
Yeah, it's the very edge of the camera, but from how this point total is going up and how players are reacting, I think that is the correct card.
There's Crypto flipping into the lineup. He's a pretty solid defense from confrontations. He's draw a card whenever you play him. So another card that would help Harley's flash deck going on. And then his defense is you can discard this card to avoid an attack, and if you do, you may put an assist card from your discard pile into your hand or draw a card. Assist in the free-for-all version of competitive DC deck building isn't too relevant. It doesn't really do anything. So basically, there's a few cards in the cube that still have the assist keyword, so you can add those cards back to your hand with Crypto. But most of the time, he's just going to be drawing you a card. He's going to be defend, draw a card, or play it and draw a card.
But there are a few. There's a Bizarro card that's an assist still in there that's draw 2 cards. So it's not all hope is lost and that you won't hit an assist. It's just odds are pretty low that they'll be there.
There's also that Doomsday, I believe. That's like a 5 cost and that destroys a card in your discard pile. That one's a pretty good one to get back to, especially early to mid game. So
of the assist cards that did survive the cut, they're not bad options to have if you got Crypto.
Yeah. Looks like we got a Lightning Rod in the lineup, which is a time travel card, and someone bought the Flight that we have shown now. Flight is just defend and put a card on from your discard pile on top of your deck. Note it can be Flight. If you want to discard your Flight and then put your Flight on top, you can do that trick if you want.
Seeing as it's 2 parts of the power, like one sentence says do this, and then the next part says do that.
You would discard it to your discard pile, and then it would be in your discard pile to choose to put back on top of your deck. The Lightning Rod here is you may time travel it, and you can destroy a card in your hand, and then you put a card equal or lesser cost from your discard pile to your hand. So like typically you'll discard a punch, destroy a vulnerability or a weakness in your hand, and then add back the punch that you discarded to time travel the Lightning Rod.
I think this has nothing but Bizarro abuse written all over it.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to get plenty of free weaknesses gained off destroying his starters with that card. So you can give him plenty of free draws. And another Johnny Quick is flipped as well. The generic 2-cost draw card. Here goes Telepathy for the Harley player. It's going to let him discard a card and draw a card, and then draw for Harley. A very strong card for that character in general.
So I think it's really interesting that Cybernetics has made the rounds, especially showing that the Green Arrow player has 2 locations out in the field now. This is the point where that card, for as low a cost of it is, starts to pay off for those ongoings that he's been collecting. Yeah,
it's at least a kick at this point. Like if he buys any more ongoings throughout the game, it just turns into a better value kick. It'll become 3, 4, 5 power depending on how many locations he ends up buying throughout the game.
Which at this point, that might be the strategy he needs to run with, just so he can get some power going in his card and no one else is contesting ongoings.
Yeah, because right now it just seems like he's just farming cards in the lineup and not really producing much power to show for it.
Right. Unfortunately for the team up that he picked, the deck is not being kind and flipping attacks during his window of opportunity.
If the Johnny Quick does make it to him, though, he can get that for free with Green Arrow. But
that'd be a solid move to do that. Cybernetics, maybe even a Crypto if he can generate enough.
Yeah. But looks like a Harley player is playing his Black Lantern Batman again. So everyone's getting weaknesses handed out. Looks like Green Arrow is defending. Bizarro, of course, didn't defend. It's a free draw for him. Looks like he got hit with both. The first attack to give a weakness and the additional to gain an additional weakness for having an equipment. And he's playing Power of the Red as well. He's going to discard a couple cards to draw a card.
Will this be the first activation of Harley Quinn, or has Harley Quinn already activated?
I believe he already activated from Telepathy.
Okay.
Unless he just forgot to trigger her.
By the way, he's got 3 cards showing and 4 power represented on the field right now.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty good start with 2 cards left in hand.
Yeah, for sure. And then if he still has the chance to trigger Lightning Rod to get rid of any filler cards in his deck, it looks like he's going to draw an extra card with Vicky Vale. He's still sitting at 4 power here. Thinking about what he wants to do. Looks like he's going to buy the Johnny Quick, go down to 2. Going to do anything else for his turn? He did something to get that back, or did he play another one? I'm not quite sure.
I think he picked up the first Johnny as well.
Yeah, so that might have just been the same one. Drew another card, and now he's at 4 power again. He's going to buy Crypto as well. He's very invested into his flash deck right now.
And here's another ongoing. This is actually turning into a pretty ongoing kind format right now.
Where's that Victor Stone when you need him?
Oh, no joke.
It looks like it's Manhunter's turn here. Thinking about what he wants to do here.
And you got Kryptonite hanging out as one of the new cards.
That card's pretty good. It's a slightly worse Scarecrow, and the fact that it makes your opponent discard a weakness, and if they don't, they gain a weakness. So once you flood them enough with it, they'll get to the point to where they can just discard a weakness to avoid gaining another one.
So it's definitely a good established card to say, hey, I want to make sure my opponents have weaknesses. And once they got them, then it starts to be a little bit more troublesome as far as getting the attack to trigger proper.
Yeah, but at least like it makes them discard it. So if they have like anything like a Soul Taker Sword, or for instance this Lightning Rod that the Manhunter player just bought, they wouldn't be able to destroy them in their hand. And there's the Doomsday we were talking about earlier with when we mentioned Crypto and the assist keyword. This is another great card that Crypto could be able to get back if he defended with it. Just +2 power for a 5 cost, and you may destroy a card in your discard pile. Just a very solid card. And also Alan Scott and Dark Knight also flip. Those are 2 very good cards. Alan Scott is an 8-cost card from the Multiverse expansion. Gives you 3 power, and you gain a card from the lineup. Any card you want. Doesn't matter the cost. Doesn't matter anything.
Right. For those who haven't seen the Multiverse expansion, the gain a card from each lineup. The format for Multiverse has multiple lineups, which is why it's worded that way. But in competitive format, it's just understood that you're going to gain from the lineup.
Yep. And then Dark Knight is another very powerful card in the lineup right now. It's a 5 cost from the base set, and it gives you 2 power, and then you gain all equipments from the lineup and put them into your discard pile. But if you put Catwoman that turn, you get to put one of them into your hand.
So in this format for the competitive play, I think there's 2 copies of the +2 Catwoman with no effect, and then there's also a +1 Catwoman with the attack to steal a VP.
Yep.
So there are some Catwoman options to where it's not out of question to have that trigger with Dark Knight.
Oh, and also, my mistake, it's not even just an equipment you get that turn. It's any card you bought or gain that turn into your hand. Like, you could gain all the equipments and then buy something else that you want and then put that into your hand. Like, you could essentially, like, if the lineup was 5 equipments, you can gain the entire lineup with Dark Knight. With Batwoman, buy the supervillain and then put the supervillain into your hand.
So definitely of cards to watch out for when Shapeshift starts to make its appearance. One of the good cards to have when you pick up Shapeshift.
Yeah, for sure. It's Moloch. Yeah. Moloch the Mystic.
Well, Moloch the Mystic flip out. He's a 7 costing, 2 VP. So I mean on par for a cost and VP. +3 power, so that's always solid. And then we have reveal the top card of your deck, and you may destroy it. If you do, each other player destroys the top card of their deck.
This card can be very brutal because it's not an attack, so your opponents can't avoid it at all. So like you can just forcefully destroy their like good cards in their deck, and they have like nothing they can really do about it. While you're like destroying, just like you can reveal like a starter or a weakness, destroy that, and then force them to like potentially destroy like super villains or their power cards, which is very good.
So I mean, very versatile, and especially if it's late game, you got some weaknesses that you have to deal with. That's the best scenario that I've seen, is that you have a weakness, you flip it, you're like, oh yeah, of course I want to get rid of this, and then you can potentially hit some of your opponent's power cards.
It'd be pretty brutal if someone bought this and then destroyed a starter or a weakness, and then made the Bizarro player to lose his Phantom Stranger. That'd be like a 10 victory point swing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, if you could by chance take out that Phantom Stranger, level the playing field quite a bit.
Looks like New York City. It just slipped in the lineup. Never mind. It's a card that lets you buy from the destroyed pile as if it was the lineup, and then you destroy the top card of the main deck. This basically like lets you buy back your cards that might have gotten destroyed by supervillain attacks, or if you're Black Adam, lets you buy back cards that you like might have destroyed for Black Adam's effect when you're farming your VP, so you can farm them again later in the game.
So some interesting things that start to happen is that some of the Rogues Gallery cards, superpower cards, are 0 VP cost, but whenever you gain them, you get your VP tokens up front. So some interesting things that happen is if you have a destroy card like Frankenstein, or not a destroy card like Frankenstein, but if you have Frankenstein, you can gain cards from the destroy pile, like New York City. And New York City, of course, you just start a VP farm cycle to where you destroy it, send it to the destroy pile, get it back, get some more VP. Frankenstein, slightly a little bit more ideal than New York City for that strategy, just because you can pay 0 to get back a 0 VP value. But just point being is New York City opens up a lot of options as far as you don't have to operate strictly from the lineup. And one of the important things about that for the Black Adam player is that your kick stack now becomes infinite.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since it looks like his kick stack is running low. It looks like he has about 2 left. And also looks like he resolved possession against the Green Arrow player. I don't know how devastating it was. I didn't quite see if he had to resolve any attacks on himself. But I'm sure he had to resolve 1 or 2, considering he's been buying attacks all game. And then speaking of attacks, we also have Despero that just slipped into the lineup. The very good 6 cost from Forever Evil lets you draw 2 cards and you choose a foe. And they have to discard a card with cost 1 or greater. So they just basically have to discard any of their good cards that they bought throughout the game. You get to choose which one, but you also get to draw 2 cards. There's really no downside to this card. And Green Arrow Comedian can potentially get it for 3 power later in this game if it makes it to him, which would be pretty surprising. That is a very strong card.
Yeah, it's 2 players to make it through in order for that to happen. Let's see if they're able to make the power at this point.
We got the Harley Flash deck, drawing, and drawing again. He's at 1 power after playing 3 cards. I mean, plays Cadmus Labs. He can potentially get Solstice back to his hand, play it again, and get up to 2 power, draw another card. I'll see if he does that or if he has something else up his hand. Oh, he's probably going to play Jaina and get an extra power from that. He'll go up to 5 if he chooses to do that. And get to draw. Yep, he's going to Cadmus Labs as Jaina, play it again, go up to 5, draw another card for the Jaina since he played Canary Cry earlier this turn. He has 1.
Cybernetics for 1.
Yeah, Cybernetic Enhancements for 1 because he has his Cadmus Labs he just played.
So 6, at this point, I'm thinking he is aiming for the Despero.
Yeah, for sure. He has enough already. He's easily got that if that's what he wants.
Well, it's a pretty costly lineup, so is he trying to make enough power to get 2 out of the lineup, or is he going to fall short and get Despero Kick?
I mean, Despero Kick's still pretty strong, but he looks like he only has 8. Maybe he goes for Doomsday or Dark Knight and Kick, but I'd be pretty hard-pressed to pass up on Despero or Moloch the Mystic. Neither one of those cards is very strong. This is a very good lineup. It's kind of hard to go wrong with any of them.
Yeah, it's just a tough choice at this point because if you pass up Despero, that means someone's going to be disrupting you if you don't have the defenses. But at the same time, Moloch, that's hard to stick your neck out like that and just go, is he going to hit the right card and destroy my good stuff?
Looks like he got up to 10 or 12 at this point because he just drew Black Lantern Batman again off of his Raven. He's just drawing that every turn because he just has so many cards in his deck that just draws him cards.
So in order to get the Despero, he would need to be able to, well, Despero and Moloch, he needed to be able to generate 13, but looks like he might be falling short as he's picking it up already.
Looks like he just chose to go with Moloch, and he might take a kick as well. Moloch's a very strong card, so I can't blame him for that.
Right, sitting with 3 power left on the board for what's shown.
Yeah. But, I don't know, he's got a flash deck going. Can you really go wrong with like buying another draw 2 card?
Not really. The only thing that I'd be concerned about right now is that it seems like he's already been focusing in on his starters, and he hasn't really been the subject to very many weakness cards, so that Moloch, I don't really see him triggering. It may have been just a defensive buy for +3 power.
Sure. I mean, he also could have bought Dark Knight or Doomsday, but or like a power, but
that's true.
He could have bought both potentially because he did have like 10 power, so whatever works, I guess. They can't really go wrong in the lineup, like we said. All the cards are pretty strong right now, except for Deadshot that showed up
as a replacement card.
Yeah, it's an alright card. Like, if you makes all your opponents reveal the top card of their deck. It's cost 1 or greater. They discard it. It's a pretty good disruption card. Green Arrow will probably want it just because you can get it for free by discarding a punch.
Right. This actually is looking like it could shape up to be a good turn for Green Arrow, as there's 2 attack cards in the lineup if Martian Manhunter passes it up, but it looks like he may be thinking about it pretty hard.
It looks like Martian Manhunter bought the Deadshot and had to pass after that, which is really unfortunate because there's some quite strong cards in the lineup that he could have used, considering he triggers off of both heroes and villains. So this looks like it could potentially be a strong card for the Green Arrow player. He Expert Marksman's a weakness, draws a card for Fortress, plays Grid.
Just getting back up to speed with the lineup of the card that flipped out was Utility Belt, which is another one of those sleeper cards of at the end of the game, if you have 4 or more other equipment cards in your deck, it'll be worth 5 VP, so super villain worth of VP in itself.
Yeah, it's just like the green arrow that flipped out earlier, except just for equipments. Same from the same set, base set. Basically the same thing, just equipment. He's playing Killer Frost, and the Harley player is defending. He's trying to draw for Harley, it looks like.
And since he defended and no one discarded a location, he still got his draw effect off it.
Yeah, I believe so. So he looks like he's at 2 power currently. Yeah, as indicated with the dice right there. He's got 6.
Played a kick, a punch.
7. Looks like he played a couple kicks off camera and then a punch. He could have discarded. Did he discard a punch?
That might be what he did.
I'm assuming he discarded a punch because the death spur for him is only 5, and then he had to have discarded a punch because then those would be 8.
That would make sense for the math, yeah.
Or no, they'd be 2 reduced. Then it'd be
right. So Comedian makes attack cards cost 1 less just on his own.
Yes, that makes the death spur a 5.
He discards a punch for Green Arrow, which would be -2 for villains.
Yes, that'd be both 3, so that would have been 6 power. So he had 7, so that's plenty to buy those 2.
Had 1 point spare.
Unfortunately for him, Science Cell flips after his turn. Science Cell is another one of those late game cards that can just like steal games. It's 1 VP for every villain in your deck at the end of the game. And for Green Arrow, that would have been a very strong buy, but it probably won't make it back to him.
No, at this point, for how the game's been going on and the number of villains that have shown up, I think each player can benefit from that card.
Especially since time's getting low on the game, and they've only bought 1 super villain, and there's only like 11 minutes left in the game. At this point, you're better off just farming, most likely. So a Science Cell and a Utility Belt right now, like getting both would be pretty huge.
I'm a little bit surprised that for the farming that's going on, the focus not being on the villains, that the kick stack's actually existing, and that Black Adam player is just uncontended. No one's doing anything to disrupt him from VP farming off it.
Yeah, looks like the Black Adam player is Phantom Stranging some more starters to get more weaknesses. You draw more cards with this Bizarro.
So it looks like we're looking at another potential combo turn. Since there's no superpowers in the lineup, he has that Starfire ability to draw a card in addition to Bizarro, weakness, discard, draw a card.
There he goes, returning 2 weaknesses to draw a card.
At this point for the game state, I'm not sure if he has the equipments already in deck to make use of Utility Belt. But if he can swing 10 points, it seems like Science Cell Utility Belt would be a pretty good team up.
Yeah, like for sure. Like at this point, like seems like he has a few villains in his discard pile. Looks like he at least has an Emperor Penguin, which is an interesting buy. I'm not sure whenever he got that, but it also would have been an interesting card for him to destroy with his Phantom Stranger because that would have just given him 2 more VPs, and it would have given him another weakness for Bizarro. He's at 4, 5, 6, 7.
He should. He's breaking past 10 easy.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11 power. So it looks like he was able to buy signs. Oh, 13? Okay, I couldn't see the other card off camera.
So he still, if the dice are right, he still has 3 power floating.
2 power, I think. Because Science Cell and Utility Belt are 11.
You're right, excuse me. Bad math on my part. 2 power floating.
I'm not sure how he got the center block 2.
Well, 13.
If the dice are right, then he couldn't have done that. But
maybe there's a little bit of talk going on at the table as far as what the total value was.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. As it's just a fun game, I don't think it's too big of a deal.
So replacing cards that we have coming up are Mallet, 4 costing 1 VP. It's reveal the top card of your deck, draw it, or pass it to any player's discard pile. Which it's just, I mean, in all honesty, it might even be better than the destroy card because you throw interference at another player.
Looks like the Harley player played Moloch and decided to destroy a card, and then the Green Arrow player had to destroy his Doomsday off the top of his deck.
Oh, hard hit.
Yeah. And, just like I was talking about earlier.
He got it.
The Moloch for the Phantom Stranger. That's a huge thing
This
in the
VP
game.
battle is back on.
The Black Adam player also should be gaining a weakness for getting his Phantom Stranger destroyed. Yeah, there he goes. But Moloch the Mystic destroying a Phantom Stranger is a huge swing in the game.
Man, that is a momentum swing.
Yeah, that he just lost potential 10 victory points. That's huge. see.
All right, getting back up to speed with what happened in the lineup here.
This is a very Batman-friendly lineup right now. For that Dark Knight right now, there's a Mallet and a Soul Taker sword, as well as Batcave. Batcave is in like Fortress of Solitude. You just play an equipment instead of a superpower or draw a card. One of the basic just play a type, draw a card locations from the base set.
At this point, I could see the Beast Boy Harley Quinn player picking that up just to boost his cybernetic power.
Yeah, and he looks like he plays Black Lantern Batman again. This guy's like just drawing this every turn.
Isn't that flash deck going into full effect here? Of it seems like there's no more starters to get in his way, so he is just soaring through his deck every turn, dishing out those weaknesses, keeping the other players on their heels.
Yeah, for sure. And he just looks like he just picked up that Dark Knight as well. So if these equipments manage to stay around for a turn, that's like 2 free cards for him if he manages to find it, which I'm sure he can, because at this rate he just draws through his deck like almost every turn.
So with 7 minutes left in the round, we're going to see if the flash deck was able to gain enough momentum, because a lot of times with the flash deck, you start getting your build to work, you just run out of time to get any traction with it. We're going to see if he's able to do this fast enough to get the traction.
Ooh, and a power ring just slipped as well. That's another really strong equipment that he'd be able to gain with that Dark Knight if he's able to dig for it next turn. I think it's the Indigo. Yeah, Indigo Tri-Power Ring. This one just lets you get power equal. Its power for this card is equal to the power of another card you played this turn. Like if you played a Super Strength for 5 power, then you would play this and get another 5 power essentially.
And there are several +3 power cards in the game, so it wouldn't be a bad purchase just for the sake of its ability.
Yeah, a 5 cost giving you 3 power is just extremely solid for the cost of the card.
The other card that was flipping out to fill up the lineup was a card called Vibe.
It's very similar to the grid card that the Green Arrow player has that puts a villain or equipment on top of his deck. This one puts a hero or superpower. It's just a very cheap 2-cost card that sets up combos. It's a pretty decent 2-cost card.
At this point in the game, with no one going for the supervillains and farm strategies going into effect, it's a very good card to have in the lineup because it's just 2. So it's very possible you could go for a 5-cost, make 7, and just have that extra 2 to gain that 1 VP.
Yeah. At this point in the game, like VP farming is definitely essential, especially since we only have 5 minutes left in the game before time, and they only on the second supervillain of 5. Farming is definitely a very viable strategy right now.
Very unlikely that they're going to be able to buy 4 villains within this time frame. It's looking like they'll probably get 1-2 more rounds depending on the pacing that the players set.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're now approaching the 5-minute warning mark.
Looks like Green Arrow's playing Kryptonite, trying to give back some weaknesses back to the Harley Quinn player for giving him so many.
Just keeping up with the lineup, one of the cards that made it into the lineup is Super Strength. One of the few 5-costing cards that's worth 2 VP, so even though it's 5, it'd be a pretty valuable pickup at this point.
This would be a very good card to play with Indigo Tri-Bring as well. You basically make Indigo Tri-Bring another Super Strength, being another 5-cost card that gives you 3 power. And then we also have Azarath in the lineup. This would be a very good card for Harley Quinn because you could discard a useless card in your hand to make everyone else discard a card from their hand.
And one of the few players at this point that could pick up a location and possibly get it into play in time.
Yeah, for sure, especially with his flash deck that he has going on. He'll be able to draw through his whole deck, draw the Azarath, play the Azarath, discard a card for the Azarath to make everyone else discard a card, and then draw a card for Harley Quinn as well.
Although they're going on a pretty good pacing here, they might be able to fit in 2 more rounds.
They got
4 minutes left in the round.
4 minutes. Looks like he is. Looks like they have 6 power, 7.
We have a little bit of discrepancy, so we're sending someone to the floor. The clock on the wall says 1 minute left in the round. Our actual official timer says 3 minutes 45 seconds left. So they're going to be made aware of how much time is left in the round.
The Green Arrow player seems to be drawing quite a few cards as well. Looks like he played his Despero to draw 2, and he might have called his Two-Face correctly to draw an extra card. And he drew his green power ring. It wouldn't be bad for him to buy the Indigo power ring because once you have multiple power rings in your deck, each one gives you an extra victory point for each other power ring in your deck. So each one would be 2 victory points at the end of the game since he would have 2 total.
He has 9 showing, and he's hesitating. It looks like he was about to pick up Super Strength, and he's second-guessing himself. It's getting dangerous if he's second-guessing himself.
I mean, Super Strength also gives him 2 victory points, but then he also misses out on the extra victory point for his other power ring. Looks like he's just going for a lot of superpowers here. I think I would have definitely taken Indigo Power Ring since you're definitely in farm mode right now. You're missing out on the extra victory point there.
It's a long shot, but I'd have to go with the Indigo Power Ring as well, just in case that last ring flips at the end of game for you. You'd be ready to receive it versus not being able to take advantage of it.
And then also just that 1 extra victory point in case it ends up mattering. If he ends up tying with someone and then loses because he didn't have that 1 extra victory point, that would feel extremely bad.
Right. So let's see. Speaking of Indigo, this is just an Indigo roll right here. We have Indigo Tribe being one of the fill cards. Would have been great to see this earlier game as it's a 7-coster, 2 VP for 4 power that it makes. Then villains you own and in the lineup become heroes this turn.
It's also just a very good card just because it gives you 4 power. Like 4 power is just a lot of power for 1 card.
Oh yeah, I'd spend 7 in a heartbeat to get 4 power.
Like a slightly worse super strength, but you take those.
Right, not to mention with some of those 4-costing cards we talked about earlier in the game, such as Hawk Woman's actually a 3-coster, but she's +1 power and then +1 additional power for every hero you have in your discard pile. That would just be a little bit of synergy there with Indigo Tribe. If you happen to be villain heavy, you could take advantage of Indigo turning everything into a hero.
I'm not quite sure why the Black Adam player is going for Bizarro power here. It looks like he has 13, if I'm correct, because he has 3 kicks at 6, 2 punches 8, a green arrow for 10, and then if his possession is in play, it's another 3 power, I believe. So that's 13. He could buy the Hawkman if he wanted to. I don't really see why you'd buy a Bizarro power at this stage in the game, since you only have a minute left on the clock. You'll never really get a chance to use Bizarro power to full effect. Unless
he's just confident in how much of a lead he has. That is -1 to his total VP at end of game if it's still in the deck.
It looks like that's what he's going for, so... Or the possession might have been in his discard pile, and I might have been mistaken. I'm not entirely sure there. Looks like we have a different Legion Flight Ring than the typical 2-cost draw card. This is the time travel one that lets you put 8 cards from your discard pile on top of your deck, I believe.
I think you're correct.
And it's also a defense, and if you defend with it, you draw 2 and discard a card. So that'd be another good one for Harley Quinn. Or I guess it wouldn't really matter if you discard and draw anyway, but...
All right, with 30 seconds left in the game, we're going to see if we can get this one more round going.
20 seconds.
All right, we're going to step out and announce time in the round.
Looks like the Harley Quinn player time traveled the Legion Flight Ring to put a card on top of his deck and then draw it with Harley's effect. It's now time in the round. Don't know who started this game, who went first, so I do not know who will be the last turn of time. Do you recall who started the game going first?
Fortunately, we were jumping in as they were getting started, so I'm not sure if we saw the first player or not.
Alrighty, that's unfortunate. Looks like Harley will just continue her turn. Looks like she's gonna draw a bunch of cards because she drew all of her draw cards this turn.
But now that time's been called in the round, the players are gonna slow down a little bit and really think about what they can do to optimize their turns.
Yeah, whenever there's no time restraint, and you just need to take your time, make sure you make the most optimal plays to get the most VP. That way, give yourself the best chance of winning the game. See.
All right, just kind of recapping on the game. I think the Bizarro player was able to pick up the green arrow for that sleeper 5.
Yeah, and then I think Harley might have bought or was it Bizarro or was it Harley that got the utility belt and the Science Cell?
I think it was Bizarro. If we can see those discard piles, that might help figure it out. But we should be able to see just about all of Harley's deck, so we'll know as the Harley player finishes out their turn.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she has too many cards left in deck. Looks like only 1 more card left in deck.
Right. So it doesn't look like the Harley player was the one that picked up the Science Cell.
That's unfortunate, because if she didn't have any super villain, Moloch the Mystic hitting, well, Royal Flush King isn't too interesting because it doesn't give any VP value. but it might have helped the Martian Manhunter trigger both of his effects that turn.
And that could have hurt the Bizarro player if he was the one that picked up the utility belt, because he just landed an equipment with that destroy.
Yeah, and that could have been his 4th equipment to trigger the utility belt, which would have cost him 5 victory points at the end of the game.
So very effective Moloch.
Moloch has been very good for Harley this game.
It's already hit for 10 for how the deck looks for the Bizarro player. It looked like that was going to be a full 10 Phantom Stranger, but it was blocked by Moloch.
And it looks like he's playing Black Lantern Batman again. Card has been extremely brutal this game. He's giving us so many weaknesses.
I mean, he's taking his last turn correctly and just doing as much damage as he can.
Trying to take away as many victory points from his opponents as possible to give himself the best chance of winning.
Which, from what it looks like, if we can look at the camera, it looks like he has 1 VP for the Harley Quinn player, 1 VP for the Martian Manhunter player,
and then 1 for Green Arrow as well.
And 1 for Green Arrow, and then Black Adam's been doing the farming that he does. It's a little bit hard to tell, but from quick look, it looks like 5 VP, 6,
7 maybe.
See, I see about.
His hand's kind of in the way at the moment.
I'm trying to steal some looks at it.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think he has 7. It could be wrong though.
His hand keeps on covering up those last few. I'm seeing 6 at the moment.
Yeah.
So for sure 6. Yeah. Possibly 7, because I think he saw one that I missed whenever he's moved his hand around. So Black Adam definitely has the VP stocked up for the emergency end
Harley
game.
was able to buy the supervillain too, so it looks like we're finally getting to the 3rd supervillain of the game after hitting time in the round.
Very smart play for last turn in the round, hoping that the supervillain just upsets their last turn hands.
Shazam! This could be very brutal if they don't have defenses.
Let's pull up that supervillain Shazam.
This one can be pretty brutal. It makes each player puts a card with cost 5 or greater from his hand or discard pile on the bottom of the main deck. And if they can't, they gain a weakness. This could be a supervillain. This could be a power card. This could just be like anything that impactful in the game. It could be 1 to 6, 7 VP worth of like loss from this card right here.
So it looks like Green Arrow doesn't want to play that game, and he's defending.
Looks like Bizarro is defending as well.
The Harley Quinn player is crypto defending. And it leaves Martian. We don't know if it's a defense happening or not.
I couldn't quite tell if he did or not.
It looks like something's happening, whether it be his turn or his discard. We're not sure, but there's some action going on with him.
I think it's his turn because he's revealing cards from the top of his deck, so it might be Silk Spectre triggers.
That could be.
I think we're good.
Water. So it looks like everyone was successful because we didn't see anything go to the bottom of the deck.
Ooh, a late game time sphere. I don't think this would have too much impact now, but it might have a few turns ago or earlier in the game.
The potential is that for Green Arrow, since if Bizarro was the first player when time was called, this could be the end of it, or it could be reaching first player and concluding one final round. But the time sphere could be beneficial for the Green Arrow if he flips and manages to get a lot of low costers.
It looks like he's going to time travel the Legion Flight Ring first and put a card from his discard pile on top of his deck. He might be trying to draw. Oh, he's going to draw that with Fortress of Solitude because he played his Expert Marksman. Maybe. Or he might have already drawn for Fortress.
Looks like he's trying to decide how to resolve some things.
See how he decides to play out his turn. Looks like he's going to time travel the time sphere as well and put the other power ring and the 2 locations on the bottom of his deck. He gets a telepathy, another time travel card, a Garfield Logan, and a Silent Armor. A Garfield Logan at this point in the game isn't going to be too interesting, but it has the ability of like the next card you play as it's after you play it, or anytime during your turn you can choose a card type. The next card you play is that card type for that turn. Like if you have a punch, you can call a superpower, your Black Adam for instance, and then blow up that punch. If it was the first superpower you played that turn, and gain a VP and draw a card as an interesting interaction that could have occurred during this game. Also would have been really good for Martian Manhunter because it could trigger hero or villain that he needed. And the Telepathy in the lineup is a really good time travel card. Let's see, if it was the first card you played, you get to like play someone else's hand instead of your own. But in this instance, our Green Arrow player is just going to time travel for 2 more power.
I'm really interested to see where Green Arrow's trying to go since he has 4 power showing, and the supervillain is still way out there as far as cost.
And then he's time traveled 3/5 of the lineup.
Okay, here we go. We're getting more dice to represent his total.
Okay, so he's at 8.
That's a lot more respectable, especially if he Green Arrows to reduce that supervillain cost.
Looks like he has a couple cards hidden on, like down there off to the zone again. It looks like he's just going to buy the Silent Armor, which is a good card. Whenever you have a bunch of ongoings, you get to gain the top card of the main deck by discarding an ongoing. Also lets you just draw a card.
So it looks like he was fishing, trying to make 10, fell a little short of 10, and just did what he could. And so here we go. Here's that situation where we're talking about of Indigo Ring. Actually, Yellow Power Ring has made its way into the lineup.
I think the game actually might be over because the Bizarro player just fanned out his deck. So maybe there wasn't. Maybe that was last turn of game.
So it looks like time was called on the first player's turn, where there was only 1 round taken to conclude the game, rather than everyone getting 1 additional round to make sure everyone had an even number of turns. So now we're just going to wait on the players to get their totals together, and then we'll post the totals and let you know who the winner is.
Or is he still? Why does he have so many cards fanned out?
He didn't do a draw effect or anything, did he?
He might have just time travel. I think he just time traveled Legion Flying actually, and then put a card on top, and then he returned his 2 weaknesses to draw. I don't know why he fanned out his discard pile so much. It's a little interesting.
Wait, the dice is in play. Excuse me. It looks like there could be action still happening.
To keep Bizarro Power to give everyone else a weakness. He's gonna Alan Scott a card from the lineup.
So this possibly could be his hand?
I think the rest of the cards are his discard pile that he just fanned out.
To select?
I guess. He looks like he's going to gain Telepathy. That's interesting.
Okay, this is discard because you just put that in there.
Yeah, so I think in play he only has Alan Scott and Bizarro Power.
All right, yeah, that has to be his discard because Alan Scott just gains. It does not put in hand. So it looks like he may just be doing a final turn weakness management to make sure he gets them all out. Have a little bit of discrepancy of what's going on, but 7 power is showing on the field right now.
So he is gaining Telepathy with Alan Scott, I guess, after contemplating putting it back in the lineup.
So at this point in the game, I don't see another power ring in his discard pile.
I believe he just drew for Starfire because there's no superpowers in the lineup now that he gained Telepathy.
He's really digging in and doing what he can with the cards that he has available.
I think he's trying to hit that 14 for that Shazam.
That could be.
He's halfway there. He only needs 7 more power.
Can he do it with the card drawn?
He's going to time travel the time sphere to get 2 more, so he's at 9, I believe. You could buy those 2 cards that just slipped in the lineup with his 9. He got Ace John Constantine and a Sonic Siren. Gonna draw another card with Cinder Block.
He's really digging in.
He could like choose to put his Cape and Cow on top of his deck, but I don't see how that would do much for him right here.
Of all the cards he's been picking up, there's been a whole lot of +2 power cards. I'm really trying to recall if he has any more +3 power cards or any really advantageous cards left in his deck, or if he's just digging through, just trying to generate what power he can.
He has that possession, but it's in his discard pile.
True, that would be a +3 if he could manage to somehow get it.
I think he's pretty stuck here at 9.
He has 2 weaknesses hanging out. He can get 1 more draw off. At the bottom of the screen, they're hanging at the bottom of the discard pile.
I think that might just be 1. I'm not entirely sure. I know he got 1 off of Bizarro Power. I don't know if he has another one.
That might just be a discolored vulnerability. You're right. He might be recapping the turn, making sure everything's balancing out right to make sure all options have been used up.
looks like he has 11. Yeah, he has enough to buy
Oh, he was
Shazam.
slow
There we go.
rolling. He was slow rolling that. But that did confirm he's the one with the utility belt.
And I don't see enough
unfortunately,
equipments in his discard pile currently with the Science Cell and the Cape and Cal only being 2 other ones. So that utility belt might not actually be live for him.
so in all honesty, with the discard stack spread out like it was, I didn't see too many heroes either. How about you?
I didn't either. Like I saw a bunch of superpowers, like a bunch of kicks and a bunch of other things, but I didn't see too many heroes or equipments or villains even for his Science Cell.
So even though he picked up very valuable cards that every player would love to get their hands on, it's possible that he may be relying on the VP tokens rather than getting those to trigger.
Yeah. And Vic Stone just showed up. That would have been a very good card earlier in the game with all those ongoings showing up. It's a little bit late to the party, but it's a very powerful card. It lets you draw a card for each ongoing you have in play. Only that would have been like shown up earlier. That would have been a very good power card for some of these people who decided to pick up some ongoings. Hawkman just gave Harley some more victory points for playing it. You get +3 power and gain 2 victory points, which is a pretty powerful effect.
So if you're gonna duplicate any kind of card, just by possibility, that'd be a great card to duplicate.
Yeah, you get +9 and +6 VP. That's pretty strong. That's basically like Hawkman doubling his value at the end of the game.
So what I'm interested in, just because of the nature of the Harley Quinn deck that's been happening throughout the game, is he going to be able to get off the Black Lantern and Batman again?
I'm sure he will. Like at this point, he just draws cards draws the deck like every single turn.
There you go. He's discarding and fishing for it. Fortunately, we can't see that discard pile from where it's located on the table, but it looked like he drew 3 cards.
He played his New York City. That's +2 for cybernetic enhancement, and he's going to get +2 for his Blackbriar Thorn. I don't think he has anything left to destroy at this point in the game. I'm pretty sure he's filtered through all of that already.
Right, of the players, I think he's been in most control of destroying and filtering through his deck.
Bizarro's been pretty good about it too, but he's kind of been stuck in power-wise for a while.
Right, the lineup didn't take a friendly turn for him as far as being able to continue the momentum that he did have.
It's like looks like Harley's gonna buy the 2 time travel cards in the lineup to make sure no one else can use them to help give them power to get to the supervillain.
Right, just since he wasn't able to seal the deal and get the villain himself or calculate a way out to do it, making sure he's shutting that door on the other players, not letting them take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure. They have it. Maybe Manhunter and Green Arrow have one more turn. The game should be ending soon. Not entirely sure who started.
Taking a guess, and I'm thinking the Bizarro player may have been player 1.
Yeah.
Just from how we made a full round after time was called.
Yeah.
We still could. I mean, that still could not be the case, but just taking a guess to give a little bit of a time frame for how it might be ending up.
The Harley player still going?
Yeah, the Harley player is not giving up just yet.
Oh, he also bought the Vic Stone.
Going for that VP.
That's a very big VP swing. He got.
That's 3. No,
That's
2.
2 for that, but then he also bought the 2 time travel cards. So that's 4 victory points this turn.
So he managed to swing a supervillain's worth of VP out of this turn.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very strong turn from them at this point in the game.
So the curiosity is going to be what flips out for the Martian Manhunter this turn.
I think that was game, actually. It looks like they're starting to count up.
Yep, Martian Manhunter separating his cards out into stacks. So this is end of game at this point. That was the last turn. Pretty effective turn for that last turn there, doing what they could to gain those VPs in for the Harley Quinn player.
And got 2 from Hawkman and then ended up getting a 4 from cards he bought from the lineup. It's a 6 VP turn.
So this was an unusual game in that it was decided pretty early that it was going to be a farming strat game for all the players.
Yeah, all of them seem to like struggle to really like consistently trigger their abilities to gain power, especially Manhunter, which is a little surprising with how long the game went on.
I mean, just a quick reminder for how this game started. It was 2 rounds of people buying kicks to get the game started.
Yeah, the lineup like to start the game is not very strong at all. But I guess the Manhunter probably got flooded out, and then not being able to buy early villains and heroes probably didn't help his chances at all.
Right. So at this point, what's your speculation on who's looking good?
I think Harley might have won, like Harley or Green Arrow. I feel. I don't feel like Black Adam Bizarro won anymore since he lost his Phantom Stranger and his Also, he lost another equipment to help his utility belt. I think he had.
For the pacing of the game, he lost his Phantom Stranger for sure because Moloch was a MVP this game.
That card put in work for him.
He lost an equipment for utility belt, but it looked like he was even less than 4.
Yeah, Manhunter did have a supervillain, so it's like that might be. He did have a lot of weaknesses. So that might have been canceled out by how many weaknesses he had.
Right, I think you're right that Green Arrow might be a sleeper this game and come through with some VPs.
But like, especially with like how he's able to farm villains whenever they were in the lineup just to get free cards or discounted cards.
That's what I've been noticing a lot about a lot of players who've been placing first and second, is that it's not necessarily they come through and get those big 7 cost purchases.
Yeah.
Is that they sneak in these turns where they get multiple buys without anyone really noticing what just happened.
Yeah. Let's see.
So for some reason, no, that's not Phantom Stranger, is it?
I feel like Harley's definitely in the lead here for sure, though. Did he gain the Phantom Stranger with something?
New York City. He got New York City into play in time.
That's insane.
Oh, dude, yeah, I think he cinched it with
Harley
that.
clinched this game.
I'm pretty sure Harley cinched it.
Because it looks like he had like a couple starters and 2 weaknesses, so the Phantom Stranger is still worth like 6 or 7 victory points, I think.
So whenever New York City flipped, it got past just a little bit, but the Harley Quinn realized the potential there with the Moloch after hitting Phantom Stranger, not forgetting that he got it. Remembered that, was able to get New York City into play in time, picked up the Phantom Stranger. So that was probably the effect that was happening that turn where the math wasn't really adding up, as he bought that from the discard or the destroy pile.
That's insane. That was a very big swing for him.
And it looks like the Black Adam players double checking, making sure the timing of picking that up, pointing it out.
I'm interested in who won. We haven't quite gotten a total yet. Pretty sure Harley won with a supervillain, a Phantom Stranger, and then how like they just drew through their deck every turn.
With picking up that Phantom Stranger, I have a strong feeling Harley is in the lead, if not close second. I never count Black Adam out just because that farming is very deceptive as far as what cards they have and then the total VP they have at end of game. But it does look like the Black Adam lost momentum towards the end of the game. The Martian Manhunter was fighting an uphill battle, but they did have several turns where they had a hero and a villain, and they were able to get a partial trigger for the Manhunter. And then the Green Arrow player, they could come through with some serious VP just because they were doing some smart plays, getting multiple buys in just whenever they presented themselves. What was Harley's score?
30.
All right, so who was second? I just want to try to get first and second.
I got on this.
30. And then Silk and Green Arrow were in the 20 range. Okay. Can we get the Harley player? All right, we're going down to the floor right now. We're going to see if we can get the Harley player in here to talk about the game. All right, here we go. We have the Harley player making their way into the booth.
But it was so broken.
All right, man. Here's what I gotta know, man. That was some excellent playing going on out there, especially using that New York City to pick up the Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a sneak play where it was one turn because it was off camera. We couldn't see what was going on, but the math wasn't adding up. We weren't sure. Then we start tallying up the totals, and bam, there's Phantom Stranger in your deck, not Black Adam's. We're like, what just happened? We had to go back, talk about it, and figure out. We're like, that turn, the math wasn't adding up. That's what he did. Yeah. So, I mean, talk to us about that game, man. What are some highlights?
I just pretty much, getting the smaller villains and superheroes at the time and getting all those draws was just pretty much playing it out. But the best thing was basically when I got the Black Lantern Batman, I was basically able to, get him from after playing him one time, getting the discard, and then just playing off of Black Lightning at the time, just discarding cards for a 3-cost villain, and then using it, pitching him just to get back my Black Lantern Batman, and just giving the guys weaknesses was just throwing them out. Like for instance, Michael and the other guy who was playing the combo with Green Arrow and Black Mana comedian. That was just, they were feeding them. I was just feeding them weaknesses, keep them down and slowing them down. Where with the other guy who was playing the Bizarro with Black Adam and Starfire, which is a really interesting combo, especially with Bizarro too. He was pretty much up there. He was doing pretty good. He was making a couple of misplays, but he was doing great with it.
So one of the things that y'all were testing out for this casual game this evening was y'all put Bizarro at a 2, and we're seeing how he fit.
Yep, and then Black Lightning was at a 1. So that's why you were able to see like Black Lightning and Beast Boy and then Harley, because Harley 3 and Beast Boy at 2. Because like I said, nobody ever plays Lightning because he's at 2, and there's just nowhere to really get him in there and start playing with him. It's playing with a 1, as you can see.
Gotcha. So earlier this evening, we were doing some experiments with the teamwork as far as how the characters' teamwork ability was working. Yep. So this game, the experiment was on rating for Bizarro and Lightning. And so throughout this game, there's a whole lot of give and go. And like you were saying, you were capitalizing on that Black Lantern. What point do you felt like the tables turned and you felt like you took the lead?
I felt like it probably took the lead, probably pretty much, like I said, when I was starting to build the discard pile and just keeping the deck up there and being able to, like I said, get the Lantern back, or like especially like I got the 2 Johnny Quicks, and I'm like, okay, now I can just discard a Vuln and a weakness and get it back because of Black Lightning, and then literally with my Lantern in there, now I can pitch it for the Beast Boy because it's a villain for a villain with a 6 cost or less. So with being Black Lantern Batman is a 6 or less, I can get him and start giving them more weaknesses, because there wasn't that, if I'm right, most of them didn't really have a lot of defenses at the time, especially like the player that was playing Aquaman with Spectre, I think he was playing.
Silk Spectre, yeah.
Yeah, Silk Spectre, and what the other card was, another card was, I forgot.
It was Aquaman, Martian, and Silk Spectre.
Yeah, Martian, yeah.
Now, we were watching that, and there were several turns where the small costing hero villains flipped, but coincidentally there were the draws. We saw you cut them off at the pass,
yeah, definitely,
and keep those villains and heroes out of his reach. Yeah. So I mean, just through some smart play, you kept him a little bit down just from proper buys, and then those attacks coming relentlessly, that hurt him pretty good.
Yeah. Just feeding him the weaknesses, like I said, was just putting them down. He was drawing more weaknesses, both were, than they were trying to. And I noticed I was giving weaknesses to the opponent who had Bizarro, but even with him doing that, he would still had to get in there and just get him out of the way as soon as possible.
Now, one of the highlights of this match early on was at the 30-minute mark, we noticed that no one had even attempted to go for the supervillain, and there were several turns where 9 power was being made. 8 power is being made, yeah, but no one was quite able to break that 10 barrier.
I tried to. I definitely tried to. Like I said, when I was looking at it, that's why I was like, oh man, I'm like 1 or 2 short every time. And like I said, it just, I had to get in there and get more of the line, like things from the lineup that I can get in there and just, discard, like I said, and get my other cards back, or just keep drawing like I was, and then start getting that power like I was doing. Was it at that time that you became aware of how much time had passed in the round and just switched over to a farming strategy? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, when I was farming for like smaller things. I can just pretty much discard a couple of Vulns, or even the weaknesses that I did get that I sometimes did not defend, because I realized, because I wanted to have a weakness, just because it's very good to use for Black Lightning's effect, because it's just X cards drop and you get a cost back for that, and it was just, ridiculous. And like I said, with being like getting Johnny Quick for just 2, and then getting back either Black Lantern or some other kind of card, like for instance, the 3 cost I had gotten where I was playing superpowers, and I was able to destroy a card too, so I got that out of the way quicker, so I wouldn't have so many weaknesses during into the game at the same time. So I thought that was pretty good. Right, during that game we watched you just get more and more consistent about being able to hit that filter card, destroy card, to just remain in control of your deck. Yeah, and then when I got Catamus Labs, the game just turned around so much faster. I noticed that too. I didn't even think about that. But having Catamus and just playing off of Janya, and just basically after playing a superpower, then you're basically getting a 4 power and getting the draw basically twice for the first one, and then again because of Catamus Labs was pretty broken. So it pretty much put me up there too. And then, like I said, I had Raven if I didn't have her. So I was basically getting a +1 power draw and then play her again, get a +1 power draw. And I was putting 2 more cards, especially if it saved as a weakness or a vuln or even a punch. I would discard them and get something back with that cost of how many I pitched. Getting the power of the red helped a lot too, especially with playing with Harley, because literally, like, that was what's so great about it. Because, you know, you could play Harley if you didn't have any kind of card to discard. You had Lightning or you had Beast Boy. So you had 2 different ways of discarding a card and drawing an extra card and getting into there faster.
Right, we were noticing that, just the good synergy Harley has with Power of the Red. Normally you go down a card and replace the rest of your hand, but with Harley you're able to fully replace every card that you were playing or discarding.
Yep.
One of the interesting moments of the game really was a lot of ongoing cards were being passed up, and Cybernetus was out there at the beginning of the game, and then all of a sudden, after the Green Arrow player picked up 1 or 2 ongoing / locations, you just shifted gears and started attacking those ongoings. Like, what was that decision about?
It seemed fair that if I started doing that, then it just forced him to not have it to be able to, you know, play the cards he needed to if he got there, so he wouldn't get the power he needed or an extra card to play off of it. And you know, and like I said, keeping him down was the whole point, was to keep my opponents with weaknesses as much as possible, so they were drawing them more than anything else of their deck, and it pretty much worked.
I mean, it was just a really fun game to watch because there was just sometimes the games get into a little bit of a rut, a little bit predictable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But this game, for all the players, really, there was just it seemed like tactics were switching just constantly throughout the game for what was being presented, even to the point where a power ring was getting passed up and blown up. But it was fun watching disruption going on from across the corners, to where normally you have player hate, where you just hate draft in front of the player, or directly behind the player. Sometimes the responsibility gets passed all the way around the table, and then a good card gets picked up that should have been bought and the other player not gotten. But y'all were attacking from player 2 to 4 and player 1 to 3, just all over the place.
Yeah, definitely.
But congratulations on your win. That was a great game to watch. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Later.